You know, when you have a massive, massive life decision to make and you say to yourself, this is so big and so overwhelming, you say to yourself, gosh, I wish somebody would just tell me what to do. Well, you can. Or you can figure out what you want to do and check and make sure it's the right decision. How do you do that? By building and nurturing, recruiting and honoring a personal board of directors. I'm not talking about your thirsty Thursday night friends. I'm not talking about your pickleball buddies. I am talking about your personal board of directors, the people in your life who know you, care about you, are not afraid to give it to you straight, and will be there for you when you need them the most. Today, we're jumping in. Not only are we talking about it, we're walking the talk, and we're going to do it. We're going to build your personal board of directors. This is if you're in the corporate world, if you're not in the corporate world, if you're retired, if you're just starting out, wherever you are, this is going to apply to you and it's going to change your life. So take it away, Thrivesters. Let's do this. Welcome to the Thrive Hive podcast, the place where success meets reinvention and nothing, I mean nothing, is off limits. I'm your host, Nancy Medoff, speaker, coach, best-selling author, and former corporate VP who knows firsthand what it means to leave a wildly successful career behind, to build a dream business and life, then blow it all up again when it's simply no longer enough. Here, we don't wait for permission to feel free. We talk about reinvention, aligned ambition, managing our energy, boundaries, and the power of surrounding yourself with the right women. This is not a networking group. It's not a therapy session. This is a space for elevated, honest conversations about business, life, and what it really means to thrive. So if you're ready to stop carrying it alone, ready to connect with women who get you, and ready to design what's next with clarity and confidence, come on in. This is your space. This is your time. Welcome to the Hive. Thrivesters, before we jump into today's episode, which I think you're really going to enjoy, I want to pop in with a really quick story. And the reason why I'm coming in here with the story is because the tools, the tips, the resources, the things we talk about here in the Hive, they're meant to be practical. And I used one of these resources just the other night. And I said, you know what? I'm going to pop in and share this with the Thrivesters. So as you know, I'm hot on this idea of a summer bucket list because I know it works and I've seen it work. And if you haven't done it yet, if you haven't made your list yet, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. There's a couple of episodes prior. We dedicated the whole episode to this idea of your summer bucket list. And really it means intentionally deciding how you want to live, how you want to feel, and what you want to do this summer, writing down a list. And then at the end of the summer, you will be shocked at how many of these things you actually check off your list. This is not another to-do list. This is a intentional summer list. Okay. So one of the things on my summer bucket list, which I'm still creating, I'm not quite done with it yet. I just added 2 things to it today. One of my things was to catch more sunsets. So I have the privilege of living in an area of Cape Cod where I can watch the sunrise in the morning on one side of the street. Then I can walk across the road and see the sunset that very same night. And I have done that more than once. I don't do it as much as I would like to. We tend to take things for granted. I try not to. Anyway, one of the things that is on my list is to catch more sunsets. So last week I was sitting on the couch. It was almost the golden hour, as we like to call it. And the sun was coming in through the windows in the house. And it was just casting this really beautiful light. And I happened to be sitting on the couch with Danny, which doesn't happen that often, particularly at that time of night. And I said, wow, I bet the sunset's going to be beautiful. And he said, yeah, I bet it is. You want to go? And without hesitation, I said yes. And we got up off the couch. We drove down to the harbor. We watched this beautiful, beautiful, breathtaking sunset. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because had I not written this down and had it front of mind or top of mind, I guarantee you I would have sat on the couch and said, wow, the light's coming in. It looks beautiful. I bet it's going to be a beautiful sunset, but I'm too tired. Or, yeah, I'll go next week. Or, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's some clouds, maybe not. I had written it down. It was in my brain. It was a priority for me that I stated out loud. And I didn't even think, oh, it's on my bucket list. I better go do it. I just said, yeah, let's go. It's important to me. I knew without hesitation that it was important. So I did it. I caught this gorgeous sunset. And that is my wish for you, Thrivesters, that you can use this list to subliminally, subconsciously maybe consciously, whatever works for you. Get to enjoy your summer and thrive this summer as much as humanly possible. If you haven't downloaded it, it's free. It's in the show notes. Let me know what you think. By the way, I understand there are some new Thrivesters here. Welcome. What's on your summer bucket list? Let me know. Shoot me a note. Find me on Instagram. Send me an email. Carrier pigeon, smoke signal, whatever works for you. With that, now let's get on to the episode. Peace out, Thrivesters. You are in for a treat today. Today is going to be pretty fantastic. Here's what we're doing. I'm really excited for this. We are going to do a live, well, somewhat live. I'm going to do it with you. It's a recorded but live self-coaching session around the idea of, we're going to do a real life exercise around the concept of your personal board of directors. And here's why I'm super excited about this. So your personal board of directors is a concept that I'm pretty passionate about. There's a chapter in the book about personal board of directors. By the way, let me back up. I learned recently that there are a lot of very new listeners. So welcome to the Thrive Hive. I'm your host, Nancy Medoff. I am so excited that you're here. And we talk about everything here at the Thrive Hive podcast about thriving and how you thrive now, in the future, when you're working, when you're retired, when you're raising your kids, when your kids are gone, when you're doing great, when you're doing not so great. So this is all about intentions, boundaries, energy management, wellness, you name it. Nothing is off limits. Okay, Thrivesters, nothing. So for those of you who are new here, if you want to hear about something, shoot me a note. I'm on Instagram, Nancy_Medoff. MED as in David, O, F as in Frank, F as in Frank. And I'm on LinkedIn, Nancy Medoff, YouTube. You can email me directly, nancymedoff@nancymedoff.com. However you want to get in touch with me. I'd love to hear what you want to hear about. So anyway, let me get back to this concept of the personal board of directors. So there's a whole chapter in the book dedicated to this. It's actually, in the book, it's called Find Your Tribe. That's not exactly politically correct. So it shouldn't be called that necessarily, although we don't really love the word should around here. With should comes shame and blame, and we don't do either of those two things here. Okay? Okay. Perhaps I could name it something else, and I will if I ever update the book again. Anyway, the point is, there is a chapter about your personal board of directors. So here's why I'm really hopped up on this today. As I've mentioned, I'm very passionate about this. I feel very strongly about it. I train people about this. I'm not talking about your rosé all day girls. I'm not talking about your friend group. I'm talking about people who know you, people who will be straight with you. That is one of the most important criteria of a personal board of directors. People who care about you and people who will always tell you the truth. Okay. And obviously people whose opinion matters to you. So what happens is in your career, and I'm going to get to why this was triggering for me yesterday when I was thinking about it. In your career, in the beginning of your career, your personal board of directors, so let's say you're in your 20s or 30s, your personal board of directors, they'll help you make decisions and they'll help you maybe see blind spots and they will help you navigate difficult career decisions. As you get further and further in your career, your personal board of directors becomes more of a sounding board, and it's more around validating the decisions that you've already made. I'm going to give you a couple examples, and then I'm going to bring this back to all of us, every single person listening. I remember years and years ago, I had the opportunity was presented to me. I think I was in my 30s, to move to Hong Kong and to lead 3 different global sales organizations over there and to lead them and bring them all together. I had never been to Hong Kong. I don't think. I might have been there once. I love, love, love Asia. I love Hong Kong. I had been there because it was a dream of mine to live there. I remember. And, so I had this opportunity. So I went over there, and this is an incredible opportunity. Like, this is the type of thing this is a life changer. And I remember something inside of my instincts and something in my brain said, yeah, this is a great opportunity, but why don't you go check it out? Get on a plane. And again, I had already been there. So necessarily a logical or rational thing to do. Like, you'd already been there. It's a great opportunity. You're going to step into this huge leadership role in a city that you're dying to live in. And so I got on a plane and I went and I spent some time researching and looking around, so to speak, in the metaphorical sense. And I realized after a few days that it would be very, very difficult. It would be a very difficult role for me. First of all, I think it was maybe like, it would have been like my second leadership position. So it's a second time leader going around the world, halfway around the world, completely different time zone, which sounds exciting. Oh, I have a totally different time zone. But if you think about it, when I'm going to bed, everybody back home would have been waking up. And when I was waking up, everybody back home would have been going to bed. Like you miss a whole day. And I didn't know the language, which is it's kind of a big deal. I mean, I couldn't read any of the signs. I could not navigate a subway. And Mandarin is a very hard language to learn. I would have learned it. And I actually started to take like little, I forget the name of the language course. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It was someone had cornered the market on language at the time. Oh, I can't remember. They used to have ads on the subways. Anyway, I was going to take their language course. I digress. So I'm like, I'll learn the language. It'll be great. This is my dream. I'll have this big leadership job. And something inside of me said, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think I'm going to be set up for success. And I agonized about it the whole way home on the plane. I remember I talked to my plane mate. Somebody should write a book, and they probably have, Confessions in Business Class, or Confessions in in aisle, in seat, Confessions from seat 17A or whatever. Because if you travel a lot, you'll notice that you say things to strangers on a plane that you probably wouldn't say to some of your closest friends. That's a whole nother podcast episode. I will get into that in another episode. Anyway, so I remember talking to the guy next to me and I'm like, yeah, something doesn't feel right. I don't think it's a good idea. And then I remember I had a car service pick me up at the airport. This was before Uber. And I remember the man that was driving the car was taking me back to my apartment in Chicago. And I was telling him the situation. He was not from the United States. He was from Eastern Europe somewhere. And he said, he had a very thick accent. And I remember he said, I got out of the car and he said, can I say something to you? And I said, sure. And he said, this job would be very hard for you. This job would be very hard for you. And I wasn't offended. Usually if somebody says to me, you can't do something, I'll tell them all the reasons why I can. And in this case, I said, can I give you a hug? And I gave him a hug. Anyway, there was this moment. So my point is, I got home and I called my boss, who was one of the best bosses I've ever had. And she was on my personal board of directors. This is someone who knew me well, knew what I wanted to do, like she knew me well. And she was not afraid to say to me, you don't think you should do this, don't do it. And I remember the time I said, there was a few different things going on. I'm going to save that for another podcast episode. I remember she gave it to me very straight in a positive way. Now, your personal board of directors is not always going to, by the way, I did not end up taking the job. And they hired a Chinese national, and she ended up doing a great job. It just wasn't a good idea. So anyway, that was one of those sliding doors moments. So your personal board of directors, in this case, it was very positive. She gave me positive reinforcement. And in the beginning of your career, they will help you make decisions. Later in your career, they will help you validate your decisions. They will not always tell you what you want to hear. And that is probably the most important criteria for someone to serve on your board of directors. And they'll change as you change. There are a few ride or dies that are still on my BOD. I think there's maybe one. There's one person, I think, that has been on my board of directors. I'm going to get choked up. I think I got choked up the last time I talked about this. She's been with me for years, and she's awesome. She's the best. So that came out of nowhere. And you know who you are if she listens to this. So, okay, we're going to go through and we're going to create our personal board of directors. Here's where this gets interesting. I was doing some research, and like I said, I wrote about this, and I've been teaching this for years. And I do a training exercise where I work with the people participating in my keynotes or my workshops, and we say, okay, let's build your personal board of directors. And I have it down. And then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, let me see if there's anybody out there talking about anything new about personal board of directors. So I looked it up and everything was about career, career, career. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why are we only talking about this as it relates to your career? So a couple things I found offensive. One, so if you're done with your career, like if you're not working anymore, let's say you're retired, let's say you won megabucks. Let's say you made so much money you don't have to work anymore. Then you don't need a personal board of directors. You don't need advice. You don't have big decisions. What if you've never worked in the corporate world? You don't have decisions that might change your life. You don't need a solid personal board of directors in your corner helping you navigate these truly life-changing decisions. You do. And I would say maybe after or if you're done with the corporate world, if you've never been in the corporate world, maybe you even need it more. So I started to get a little activated about it. And I said, you know what? I'm getting mad and we're going to address this on the podcast. So, like big decisions stop when you stop working. That's absurd. That is absurd. That's a little bit of bias there and I don't appreciate it. So, we're going to talk about personal board of directors for everyone. Here's what we're going to do. Let's talk about who they are. This is not your rose all day, as I mentioned. These are people who care about you and they're going to tell you the truth, even when it hurts. Here are some very difficult things I have heard from my board of directors over the years. I'm going to read these because I had to write them down. And they're not painful anymore, but at the time they were. You won't always have the answers. And if you're going to need to trust yourself. If you don't, you're going to fail. That was one that was right between the eyes. And what I like about that is I now pass this advice on to other people. The point is, it's almost perfectionism. And it's the paralysis of perfection. Like you're not going to have the answers. And if you let that stop you, you're going to stay where you are, which it was great advice. Oof, this one was tough. This was a game changer for me. Your reputation is everything. And I've been hearing some things about you. So this was actually the same person. And she said, I'm hearing some stuff about you and you need to be aware of it. And it was about how I was being perceived. And I was a very young manager at the time. It was great advice. I could course correct. If she hadn't told me that, I would have kept on with the behavior that was not being received well, and it would have derailed my career. This was a tough one too. Your boss is abusive and you aren't seeing it. You need to leave. That might have come from my husband. That came from someone close to me, a family member. I think it might have been my husband. That was tough. So, but it's not always going to be negative. They'll give you great advice. Another one is you've been preparing for this job your whole life. You're not going to fail. This is when I was afraid to take a new role and to stretch myself. Anyway, when I think about my personal life and I think about the decisions I have to make now that aren't corporate related or aren't career related, they are just as, if not more important. This is someone who is in your corner, sees your situation, and will give you good, solid advice, even if you might not want to hear it. It could be, I know this was not said to me. This is an example. I know no one wants to get divorced. I know most people don't. No one wants a failed marriage. And at the end of the day, you're not happy and you haven't been for months. So I support your decision to take this action, or it's time for you to start thinking about what action you're going to take. That is not an easy message to deliver to someone. It is not, especially because it's someone's life. It's not simply their career, it's their life. So you need people on this board that are going to be able to say the difficult things. And that's not always easy. So we're going to do this live. We're going to do it right now. Right now. I want you to, if you're driving, obviously you can't do it right now. If you're in the shower, probably not. I doubt you have a whiteboard in the shower. If you do, we probably should talk. So come back to it. Come back to it. And I'm going to do you solid. I'm going to put a form in the show notes because I do this training and I'm going to give you access to that training. All right. So I want you to think about, I'm going to say 20, but if that's too intimidating, you can do 10. 20 people. I'm going to do it right now as we're doing this. 10. Let's go with 10. Let's go with 12. 12 people that you think would be great on your personal board of directors. Okay. I'm going to pause this while I do my 12. But before I do that, I want to remind you, this has to be, and I'm not going to tell you we're not going to talk about what kind of category in your life they fit into. You have to value their opinion. They have to be willing to give it to you straight, and they have to know you well. Sometimes when I teach this, someone will come up to me after and they'll say, hey, will you be on my personal board of directors? And I'm flattered every time. And I can't because I don't know them that well. So they need to know you well. All right. So 12 people. All right. So hopefully you have, let's just say 10 to 12 names. So these are people know you well and have your best interest at heart, and they won't be afraid to give it to you straight. Okay. Now, if you have 20, or if you come up with 20, I want you to whittle that down to 10. I want you to have no more than 10 on this list. So do whatever you need to do to get that down to 10. And that might be difficult. It's funny. Sometimes people go like 25, 30, and they go crazy. Sometimes people have like 3. So try to have it be close to 10. Doesn't have to be exactly 10. All right. So now you cannot have more than 2 family members on this list. And here's why I suggest that. Your family they might not, and this is primarily if you're in the corporate world. I find it hard to believe that more than 2 people in your family will really understand your business, your job, your role, the players. Like, I just don't think it's possible. And your family, while they might give it to you straight, there is some inherent bias in there. There is. They think you're awesome. So they just can't always be objectives. But I do think you could have at least 1 or 2. I don't have any. And that's that. I don't think I ever really did. I just don't. Okay. No more than 2 friends. See, that's tough. Now, when I'm looking at my list now, it's almost all friends. That's interesting. So there goes my rule. Yeah. All right. You can have more than 2 friends. Or if you're in the corporate world, I'm trying to think of a better way to say this. If you're in the corporate world, no more than 2 of your personal friends. Again, because they don't know your day to day. So I think a better way to say this would be make sure that they all know your day to day, like how you live, what your values are. And if you're building your personal board of directors for your job or your corporate job, it's unlikely that, 5 family members and 5 friends are really going to know you that well in that environment. And I'm realizing as I'm doing it, the reason why mine is mostly friends is because my business colleagues, now that I run my own business, they are friends. And it's just different. It's just shifted. All right. So no more than a couple friends. If you're working, no more than half of them can be from your current company. And I remember a long time ago, I went to a training class and the man delivering the training said, I want you to write down everyone you consider to be a mentor. And I did. And he said, now put a circle around anybody who does not work for your company. And there was like maybe 1 person. And that's not good because then you run into groupthink or you run into, they only know that one company. I worked for one company for 25 years. So if everybody from my personal board of directors worked for that same company, I would only have that viewpoint. You want a diverse set of viewpoints. I would try to have it be a range of experience or ages, maybe. It's not really critical, but maybe a couple of people that are younger than you. I don't know if you've heard the term reverse mentorship. This is where the younger people at the company are mentoring the older people at the company, helping them understand what's going on with their generation. It's really kind of cool, actually. It's a cool concept. That's why I love talking to my young friends. I'm like, what does this even mean? There's a whole vocabulary out there that I don't understand. It's actually kind of fun. Okay. So you're going to do all this. And now you're going to take away 4 names. You're going to cross them out. You are going to be rigorous and you're going to be ruthless. So you're going to end up with 6 names. 6 total. 6 people. 6. 6. Okay. So I'm not going to pause because you can pause me. When you get it down to 6, this is really interesting because I started thinking about this yesterday. These are the 6 people that are going to give it to you straight. They know you. They care about you. They know enough about you to understand the landscape of whatever it is that you might be dealing with. And yeah, so what I thought of yesterday that's not making as much sense today, yet I still am going to throw it out there, is to layer this over your values. And I now realize what I was going for. So layer over your values and what I was aiming for that I don't think is realistic, but it's kind of fun to see if you can do it. Do you have 1 person from your board of directors that kind of represents each one of those values? So for example, one of my values is physical wellness. I want to be physically well, healthy, nutritionally, exercise, all of that. Is there someone on my list that's a value for them and they get that? Yes, there are several people on my list. another one of my values is, or my values for this year is nurturing relationships, personal relationships, friendships, and other relationships. Is there someone in that group that's an expertise of theirs? There happens to be. I mean, I think it's a tall order to try to match that up. Also, because your values change, and as your values will change, and you don't necessarily you want the board to be about the people and not necessarily about how they overlay with your values. However, that's kind of cool to make sure that there's at least one person from each one of your values, not a requirement. So you go through this list, you should have about 5 people. Okay. That alone is a massive accomplishment. And I'm thinking more right now about people outside of the corporate space. I'm going to bring it back to the corporate space in a second. So this is who's your ride or die that will be able to give you advice. And if it's your ride or die, you probably trust their opinion and you probably value their opinion. So it's a good way to kind of look at it. All right. So let's go back to, well, we don't have to go back to the corporate space. This is for both. This is for everybody. How are you going to nurture those relationships? So the last thing you want to do is call someone once a year. And that one time a year that you call them, you have a major life disrupting decision that you have to make and you want their opinion. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to you. And that can't be because they won't know enough about what's going on with you in your life. So for example, there's someone that used to be on my personal board of directors that gave me some of the best advice of my career. I love him and I miss him. I don't talk to him that much anymore. So sure, he could give me great advice, but he doesn't really know enough about the ins and outs of how I'm living and what I'm doing to be able to give me that advice. I could explain it to him, but it's just not the same. They need to be able to be in it in the day to day with you. All right. So how are you going to nurture the relationship? Here's what you're going to do. You are going to pick a date and you are going to make sure that you reach out to every single person on that list, all 6 people. And if you have 10, all 10 people. I'd prefer if you had less than 10. And you're going to pick that date to either send them a text, send them an email, give them a call, however you want to communicate, to check in and say hello. Hey, I'm just checking in to say hello. If you know them fairly well, ask them if it'll be on your personal board of directors. This might go something like this. Hey, friend, I really value your opinion and I really value the conversations that we have. And you've given me some really great advice in the past. And I want to let you know, or maybe ask your permission or ask for your consent, however you want to phrase it. Would you be willing to be on my personal board of directors? And here's what that means. And if you're in the corporate space, what you'll say is, that means I want to make sure that we nurture the relationship and that when I have a tough decision I need to make, I can count on you to give me your perspective and to give me your honest feedback and advice. That's it. How flattered would you be if somebody came to you and asked you that? It's pretty flattering because you're not simply asking them to be a mentor. You're giving them this role on your personal board of directors. You're elevating them. It's kind of cool. So you're going to reach out to them and eventually ask them to be on your personal board of directors. And you could write yourself a commitment that goes something like this. These are the people on my personal board of directors, and you list them out and you say, I'm going to contact them by June 9th, or set a date 1 month from now, because I know you may be listening to this a little later. I will contact each one of them and you pick a date. Let's say it's a month away. And then I will follow up with them again by X date. And maybe that date is several weeks later, so that you keep yourself accountable. For me, I put it in my calendar. I say, check in with PBOD. That's what I say. And could be a text. It could be, hey, how you doing? Again, so that I'm not coming out of the woodwork with this massive life decision that I need help with. So we talked about why we like the idea of a board of directors. We talked about who can be on it. We talked about who probably isn't a good fit. And together we went through and we created your personal board of directors. If that is not thriving, I do not know what is. I have nothing else. That is drop the mic. We did it. We did it today. So with that, Thrivesters, thank you for listening. Thank you for spreading the word. I do know that there are many, many new people, and it's because all y'all are spreading the word. So thank you. By the way, if you are not yet a member of the Thrive Hive community, there's a link in the show notes. It's a free community. I send out an email once a week, usually with some epic advice. I'm kind of joking, but it's always something actionable. It's always with some actionable advice, and it's usually pretty current, something that's happening in the world or happening at the time or seasonal or whatever the case may be. Hop on that list. It's a great list to be on. And I'd love to hear your feedback of what you're liking and what you want to see more of and what you want to hear about. So, my Thrivesters, I will see you next week. I don't know what's happening. For the record, I'm recording this late in the day and I'm a morning person. That's my rhythms are like morning. So I'm a little dis something. I don't know. Dis something. Anyway, I will see you next week. And until then, go out there and thrive like you mean it. Peace out, Thrivesters. That's a wrap, Podsters. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Thrive Hive podcast. Hopefully, after listening today, you're feeling a little more fired up, a little inspired, or maybe a little more like yourself and like the person that you know you're meant to be. And if you loved today's episode, take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, tag me. I love to see where and when our Thrive Hive is growing. And if you're thinking about someone who you think should really listen to this episode, send it her way, because we all deserve to go out and live that life we work so hard to build. Now, go thrive like you mean it.